Hello, resident paper fan here, and lately I've been just obsessed with paper. Ever since a young child, I've just been obsessed with giving myself paper cuts, and yes, my parents were scared. But don't worry, I've turned out fine. But lately I've been listening for something more, something like a paper-related video game. And that's where this indie dev comes in.
Papers, please.
You gotta remember the comma.
Is a puzzle simulator hybrid developed by an indie dev named Lucas Pope. Lucas Pope originally worked for Naughty Dog on the Uncharted series, but left after making Uncharted 2. This decision to leave Naughty Dog allowed Pope to really explore different genres of games and have freedom over the games he really wanted to make. No longer was he held to the shackles of AAA development, he was now able to really take inspiration from anything and make whatever he wanted. In this case, he took inspiration from movies like Bourne and Argo, which had the protagonists infiltrate countries, and essentially wanted to make a game reversing this role. He wanted to make a game where you play as an immigration officer and have you stop these types of infiltrators. And after 9 months of development, Lucas Pope fulfilled his dream, and every Border Patrol worker got a boner. Papers, Please would go on to receive plenty of praise from critics, calling it a unique, fun, and surprisingly thought-provoking game that was dubbed an empathy game.
Well, as someone with zero empathy, I just don't think I can play the game.
It was then later ported over to mobile and the PS Vita.
Well, as someone with a fetish for PS Vita ports, I just don't think I can play the game.
Lucas Pope would later go on and make Return of the Obra Dinn, which looks like a pretty cool game, so maybe I'll check it out, but first, I gotta go through Papers, Please, because come on. Paper. When starting the game, you get greeted into a intro cutscene, and get used to this song because it plays a lot during this game. Papers, Please takes place in the fictional country of Arstotzka in 1982. Arstotzka just got out of a 6-year war against Kalachia. However, the tension between them and other countries around them are still quite high. Also, just be aware, I am probably going to butcher a lot of the names in this game. I'm sorry. This is where the player comes in as you take the role of a Border Patrol inspector, making sure that the people you let in get in legally. The game starts off pretty simple, just having you check if their dates matches up with older documents, but soon the game starts introducing mechanics that are as simple as checking if they are a wanted criminal, to verifying if their work visa lines up with their entry permit, which lines up with their passport, which lines up for their reasoning for entering. The game constantly adds new things that you need to check in order to ramp up the difficulty, and things can get pretty intense. Some characters will also attempt to bribe you with gifts or money, and some will try to play you emotionally, mentioning their family that they need to see. Some of these will make you feel bad for denying them, but remember, the bag is all that matters. If I can't see green, I do not give a fuck if you need to see your wife. Each person that you get through will provide you with money, which then can be spent every day on paying for things like rent, heat, and food for your family, as well as sometimes having to provide for your sick children. Managing your family's needs and your money is important for staying alive, is what I would be saying if the game really required you to. Honestly, if you have like the IQ of like Forrest Gump or some shit, you'll probably get enough money to provide for you, your family, and the upgrades that you can get. I just never really felt like I actually had to use my brain to manage my money. It's just too easy. They give you too much of it. The game also offers upgrades for money, but these upgrades are usually just a hotkey for one of your abilities, which is nice, I guess, but also pointless. I feel like these probably should have just been things in the main gameplay instead of worthless upgrades that everyone will buy anyways, because managing money is joke fucking easy. I don't really consider this to be really well done progression. It's just locking quality of life features behind game progression. I think it's kind of stupid. Also, while the main gameplay is fun, it is very repetitive, and by the end of the game, I'm not gonna lie, I just kind of wanted it to end. You just kind of do the same thing over and over and over again, and there's not really much to spice it up or anything like that across the game. I will highlight, though, the recurring characters, which were pretty cool, like this old red shirt guy named Georgie, who keeps trying to get into the country, or the Ezek people, which I'll get deeper into when I'm talking about the plot.
Now, let's talk about where Papers, Please shines brightest. The world building.
The world building is interesting here because the game essentially takes place all in one area, the border. But yet the world feels so big. All these recurring characters, each with their own stories, help build this sense that you are just one small part of a living, breathing world. The atmospheric sound design also helps build the world of Arstotzka. The news after every day you complete is also interesting because while it is simple, it's able to paint a pretty good picture on how the world is doing and how it works. The random terrorist attacks that happen throughout the game also help build out the world. It makes you interested on how the relations between certain countries work in this world. You know, which ones are positive, which ones are negative, which ones are dangerous, which ones are passive. I will say that there's only really so much you can do with 5 hours in a dream, but the world still feels pretty well built, especially with the amount of time it's given.
So let's dive into the plot. Oh, it's shallow.
The plot of Papers, Please is, well, about as thin as paper. The majority of the plot in Papers, Please is told through the newspapers and random character interactions. These character interactions don't really add much to the overall plot, but they mainly add context to the war and things that have happened throughout the history of the world here. They also kind of explore other nations, like maybe the United Federation or Impor, but yeah, generally the character interactions are more for building, well, character and world building than actual plot. And that's because the main plot revolves around the Ezek clan planning to overthrow the Arstotzka government, and they use you for help. Choosing to assist them will affect the ending of the game, as well as choosing not to help them. Choosing to help them, which is what I did, leads to a successful breaking of the wall at the border, a la Berlin, and has you move to a safer place with your family. I mean, clearly Arstotzka is a allegory for the Soviet Union during the 80s, however, I wouldn't really say it gets that deep into it.
Just like how I'm deep in debt.
It's mainly just kind of a commentary on sort of post-war nation relations, maybe the Cold War. It's pretty broad in its allegories, but it's definitely modeled after the Soviet Union. But yeah, in general, my main problem with Papers, Please is just its lack of depth. Outside of maybe the main gameplay here, everything else feels very half-baked and pretty boring. The money management is honestly pretty mid, and even though there's 20 endings, a lot of them are extremely similar. There's only like 3 to 4 really good endings. And as far as the main gameplay, well, it does get a lot of progression throughout the game. I don't even think it's that deep or fun enough to even carry the game's pretty short runtime, which isn't exactly great. But there's enough interesting ideas here for it to warrant a playthrough, especially with how short the game is in general. I'm feeling like a Wendy's double stack out of 10. It's alright.
Oh yeah, the short film.
In 2018, Papers, Please received a short film adaptation starring Igor Savochkin. I think that's how you pronounce it. And the overall project was produced by Kingdom Productions. The short film was authorized by Lucas Pope himself, and it should be because this is actually quite good. The production value here is very solid. I mean, you can immediately tell by the first shot here that this is pretty well made overall short film. So just from a technical standpoint, I would say it's pretty good and really good for a fan film. Even better, however, is the acting performances, especially Igor Savochkin, who unfortunately passed away on November 17th, 2021. So may he rest in peace. Anyways, his facial acting here is honestly great and really highlights the emotions the passport inspector is feeling, especially when having to deny Elisa, who is trying to talk to Sergio. Also, a lot of cool Easter eggs here, like Georgie being on one of the passports. What a legend. One thing I really love about the short film, however, is just its faithfulness. It never really leaves the passport inspection area, and the terrorist attack ending is a very cool nod to the numerous terrorist attacks within the game itself.
So that was my experience with Papers, Please, and overall it's decent. It wasn't life-changing, but some games, they don't need to do that. I would say if you have enough paper, please buy this game.
Alright. I say,
God, I'm so fucking, my brain right now is like, I'm inside this guy.